Welcome to Move Like This, brought to you by the Accounting Move Project and sponsored by Moss Adams and Sapro. On this podcast, we share ideas and hear from guests about how they find, retain, develop, and advance women and other underrepresented groups in their accounting firms. Now, on to our guest. Hello, and welcome to this episode of Move Like This. I am excited today to be talking to the founder and CEO of CPA MOMS, Mayumi Young. So first of all, thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk to this incredible audience.
Yay! We love our audience and our listeners, and a lot of times we get ideas from them on who I should have as guests. So I really appreciate that too.
All right.
So let's go back, almost 2 decades ago. You started CPA Moms in 2008 during one of the worst financial downturns on record. I remember this time because I too started my company not long after you did yours, after being laid off from my accounting marketing job. So I do remember the excitement and fear and all of the crazy emotions that came along with not just starting a business, but starting a business in a down economy. So I would love to hear what led to you starting CPA Moms, how you did it and what you experienced in those first few years.
Great question. I think I am always the kind of person who's going in the outdoor when everyone is going in the opposite direction.
Right.
I launched CPA Moms in the Great Recession, and I ultimately franchised the business in the global pandemic in 2020. So I clearly am slightly masochistic. However, CPA Moms is actually the third venture that I've launched. And each venture has been a calling. I'll say it as simply as that. I have a commitment and a passion and a love for education, entrepreneurship, and finance. Those are my sweet spots. And this particular case, I had already been working with predominantly entrepreneurs, coaching them to transform their emotional relationship to money. And we were looking at their financials. And I remember vividly speaking and coaching with an entrepreneur and looking at the books and saying, did you do this yourself? Because I can understand an untrained entrepreneur doing their own books. The quality of those books wouldn't maybe be to standard.
Mhm.
And they said, no, I hired someone. I'm like, you paid somebody to do this to you? And so it was like just sort of that conversation. And I found a need, and I have a promise with myself that I'm not allowed to complain about a problem. I either have to solve the problem or stop complaining. And so I found that I didn't like the level of support that a lot of the entrepreneurs that I was working with were receiving from the financial accounting tax perspective. And on the flip side, I remembered I was at Price Waterhouse in my very early years in my profession. And I watched what I call a one-way revolving door, where very talented women would go on a maternity leave and not come back. Not at all surprising given the experience that myself and other professionals had in that work environment. And so I was in between just sort of winding up my coaching business right in the middle of the recession. And I kept getting requests by entrepreneurs to help with their books. And I'm like, I don't do that anymore. I don't do that anymore. And, first time, third time. And I'm like, of course I'll help you as a friend. And I just noticed this sort of perpetuating problem. And I just said, all right, what if I could match professional CPAs that are moms that have left the workforce with these entrepreneurs that are looking to be helped and solve both problems at once? And it just blew up. It was like, I know the recession was painful for so many. My husband we were in the real estate investment world. So we got a life lesson, we'll say, in the 2008 recession. But from this perspective, solving this particular problem at that time actually created quite a boom for us. So we grew, I think we were at over 20 professionals in about 18 months and grew extremely fast. So yeah, it was exciting. I didn't really have time to think about what was going on in the world because we were serving clients and growing and trying to just keep our head above water, and yeah, and it was the birth of, I started as a firm, a national consulting firm, and realized that that's not really what I wanted to do, and what I wasn't replicatable to other professionals because that was my specialty. So we've iterated and evolved since then. But yeah, that's how we got started. It was, will you help me? And I said, sure. And the
That's
rest is
off
history.
yeah, often that's where some of the best, businesses come from, I think, is just that seeing a need and figuring out how to solve it, and sounds like you that was a brilliant idea on your part for sure. I'm excited for the success that you've seen, and as you know, the Accounting Move Project is an organization that, I mean, we work to understand and create opportunities for women to thrive in accounting and finance. And so I love the whole concept of CPA moms because you're right. There are a lot of times when, life happens and people want to, have children and families outside of work. I mean, the craziness of that whole idea, right?
Absolutely.
And it's they often cannot manage both, and or firms don't understand that, we need to have some flexibility here. Now, I do think it's gotten a lot better. Honestly, I think COVID, for all of the terrible things it wrought on us, I do think one of the good things is that everybody realized that, oh yeah, we can be more flexible here. But you're right. So many times we have women who aren't given opportunities or aren't able to advance or thrive at nearly the level that they could because those that are leading firms in some cases look at them and say, they're not as committed or they're not as able to perform or whatever silly excuse that is. So I love it. So you talked a little bit about how, you started it, but how has it grown since then? And has your average client changed?
Yes, we have, I'd say, evolved, iterated, pivoted at least 3 times in a major way. It didn't take long. It took about 2 years before I realized I didn't want to be a firm owner. I wanted to support and empower CPAs that were moms to create their own practices. And so I shifted, and basically almost shut my entire consulting practice down, so that my client could be the CPA herself, and really worked as a kind of agency, training, supporting, and providing leads for accountants that really wanted to build their own solo practice or firm. And so that combined my love for education and entrepreneurship and really creating mompreneurs gave me this juice of just, it lit my fire around being able to empower women with a level of confidence um and belief that they can actually be on their own. They could take control of their career in that way. And there are women who were laid off, couldn't find jobs, women who were, just how you describe the view that a lot of still corporations still have and firms have of professional working moms,
Mhm.
and undervaluing. It's the reality is it's those business structures aren't designed to support and empower a true flexible work-life harmony culture. And that's, I don't want to say that's okay in the sense that I agree with it. I don't, because if I did, I wouldn't create what I did. But I understand that it's designed for a specific outcome, and every entrepreneur gets to create their culture and gets to create what their business is for and why they exist on the planet. I just think that as we have evolved, um, we've discovered that the professionals that we most enjoy helping and that we serve the best are currently employed and have this discomfort, this dissatisfaction, this unfulfillment. Um, Perhaps they're being overlooked, perhaps there's no opportunity for them to become partners, owners. Um, and they have dreamed about, but have never dared to go out on their own. And I don't blame them. You know, in a lot of cases, they're the primary breadwinner. So our primary client is gainfully employed, but not happy or not fulfilled, and desires to have more control in her career and her life, and wants to be her own boss, but doesn't want to take huge risks in doing it. And so they come to us to help build that bridge and help them launch their CPA practices, either as a side gig or to replace their jobs. Either way, we want to empower women to totally take control of their life. And we believe that women can have a successful career and raise a happy family. You don't have to choose. So that's what we're designed for.
That's great. And that's interesting that it's people who are still employed. It's not necessarily somebody that's like made this change yet. And I could see this being something that is done on the side as long as, their employer is okay with it. But it takes a lot. I mean, you've done it, I've done it to start your own company. Your tolerance for risk has to be insane. And I am celebrating 15 years in business on my own at the end of August. Thank you. And it is still one of those things that you wake up and you think, oh my gosh, what am I doing? It could all go away tomorrow. Or it's that roller coaster ride. You never feel like you're just heading down the street most of the time. So, and
Yeah,
having this as support has to make this so much easier for the people that are a part of CPA Moms.
yeah, I mean, you nailed it. I mean, we say all the time that you're independent but not alone. When you go out on your own, if you've had the courage to do so, and I applaud you, 15 years, that's a testament. Most businesses fail, 90%, in fact, by their 10th year. So congratulations, I love it. Um, the reality is, you know, we put, it's like a business in a box. It's turnkey. It's like, here are the keys to your house. We're going to tell you how the electricity works, and it's furnished, and and so move in ready, if you will. And I think that that's the big differentiator, is because a lot of the trial and error that starting on your own that we go through has been figured out. We've done it, we've proven it, we've helped countless CPAs launch their practice successfully. We've helped build firms. I mean, you name it. And the reality is, we did it with the understanding that you weren't just building a firm to make as much money as you want. It was always keeping the two in harmony, work-life harmony, and financial and business and career success, not one or the other. And a lot of times, it's like, look, if you just wanted to have a 7-figure firm, that's easy. If you don't mind working around the clock, and not having a life, then we can do that. Simple, easy peasy, lemon squeezy. But that's not what people want, especially professional working moms. That's not what they want. And I think society in general, I think one of the other benefits of COVID is they realized to prioritize life, because I do believe that tomorrow's not promised. And at the end of the day, no one's going to be reconciling their life and going, gosh, I wish I worked more hours. I wish I filed a couple more tax returns or did a few more client books. Like, nobody is doing that. And so for me, it's really about having people be totally present to their current life, the gifts of their life, their children being young. They're going to be young one time, and the moment is gone, and you'll blink and it's over and they're graduating. Did you work through the whole thing? And yet you're a CPA or a professional accountant, not accidentally. it's a career that you worked for, and I believe you shouldn't have to give that up just because you prioritize your family. I say this all the time. We can send a man, rocket to the moon or Mars. And we can certainly solve this problem on the planet. So here we are.
Well, in that vein, and this might be a little counterintuitive to what you do every day, but we talk to firms. We have a lot of firms that participate in Move every year, and obviously put out the best CPA firms for women's list. And um, so you have a unique perspective on this of there's obviously a talent shortage facing public accounting. And part of it is because there are working women that are in these firms that are like leaving to do things like join CPA moms, which I think is brilliant that it's out there and an option for them. But what do you think needs to happen within firms to make more make it a better employment situation for a lot of women, particularly women that have children and families that they need to focus on? But also, in general, what do you think needs to happen for more people to want to go into or stay in accounting as a profession?
Great questions. As far as firm owners and the hiring shortage, we felt that right on the nose. Especially during COVID, we actually used to do full service placement for accounting firms looking to hire, and it was a very seamless process for years. And then COVID happened, and it just was like, what is going on? It's like everyone's been abducted by aliens. I don't understand what's happening. This is purely my perspective. I don't have any hard data on this, but I think I really feel like fundamentally we have to, as firm owners, we each need to pick a lane, figure out what your firm culture, your enterprise value, why you exist on the planet, figure out what that is. And for some, it's about growth. Others, it's about client service. Others, it's about being subject matter experts. Others, it's about team. And I feel like working with, especially women, certainly, but moms included, it's different. And I think that it's difficult unless you have good leaders at the top that can represent multiple perspectives and ideas. I think it's difficult to truly create a culture or design a firm or a practice that meets the needs of women unless you're going to make that your objective or priority or part of your ethos. What I don't, and I'm totally fine that not all firms, that's their jam. That's fine. We're not all supposed to be for everyone. Like, be true for you. What I don't love is this sort of like slap a inauthentic, we're all about work-life balance. And then, you've got a busy season. Well, if you've got a busy season, you aren't about work-life balance. It's not, those are incongruent. So I think we just have to recognize that I think it's not just even women. I think our entire sort of incoming generation, you're talking about the influx of accounting, the priorities of the now working force generation that's coming into the profession and into the workforce have different priorities than my generation and the previous one. And I think the original gold standard of how accounting firms were built and designed met the needs of the previous generation to me and part of my generation. I'm 51. And so I think that the industry hasn't necessarily evolved as quickly as the wants and the needs and the priorities of the latest workforce. And if we want to retain attract new, fresh accounting talent. Um, we need to be in the world. We need to stop saying, I'm going to say, I think it's inappropriate and inaccurate to say that the younger generation is lazy. I think it's demeaning and inappropriate, and inaccurate.
Mhm.
I think that it may occur that way, but the reality is what I perceive is happening is a shift in priorities in terms of where work fits and career fits in all the other things that life has to offer. And it is just not the priority for most people. And I really love and appreciate that. And yet again, not every firm is trying to create that work environment. And if that's not your jam, if you are a hustle environment, if you are hey, we're all, it's a 100-hour week and we work 7 days a week during busy season and we do this and we have a busy season and this is our jam, but we take it light in the summer. If that's what you want to create, then great. Be loud and proud about it, but know that you're definitely going to be challenged in reaching a large segment of the population that is just not attracted by that. And I think we just need to start thinking more fundamentally in the soft aspects of business development, which are the intangibles, which is culture and ethos and values and vision and and pick a lane and then attract the people that align with those values. So I think that's true for women. I think that's true for professional working moms. I think that's true for the younger generation. And I don't think that there are a lot of accounting firms that speak to that younger generation. And I think that's why we're probably losing a lot of interest. That and the advancement of technology. Certainly, if you read studies and you're in school and you're choosing I remember choosing what I was going to do. And I chose accounting because I got an A in my accounting 101 class and I had a butt ton of student loans. That was my logic back then. That was it. That was the extent of my career, beginning of my career path. I'm certain if you're in a college student at this point looking at your future and you're looking at studies that say, 3 or 4 out of the top 10 professions that are going to be obsolete thanks to technology, are you really looking at entering that profession?
Yeah.
Because that's what's been put out there for the last 4 or 5 years, which I actually to some degree agree with. So they'll find other adjacent ways to be in the space, probably in the technology side or the AI side or the something. But no, I do believe we're losing I think that we have loss on retirement. We got a lot of accountants exiting and retiring, and the number that are coming in is not commensurate with the number going out. So overall, it's getting more. I think the problem certainly for hiring is not going to get better faster, sooner. I think it's going to get more challenging, and we're going to get pressed up against a wall where we're going to have to look at outsourcing, AI, technology, pricing, all kinds of strategy that makes the business viable and livable. So yeah, it's a complex problem, and I don't think it's any one thing. But I do think that culture and technology advancements and just the perspectives of the up and coming workforce, I think, are really driving forces to this.
I agree with you, and I love what you said about Gen Z, basically, that they get so much just people give them such a hard time about not wanting to work, and that's not the case. They do. It's that whole they um work to live rather than living to work. And I respect that. I mean, I am much like you. I'm Gen Z, solid Gen Z, and or I'm sorry, Gen X. I am Gen X. So, we were raised differently, and there's pros and cons to every way of thinking for sure. But I actually have a huge amount of respect for the fact that the young professionals today have a pretty good idea of what they want out of life, and they're not willing to sacrifice that. And companies kind of are having to adjust because they're a pretty large generation as well. And but one of the things that you talked about too was the idea of the people running these firms aren't necessarily taking in all of these different perspectives. And that's one of the things that we kind of focus on is, and I say quite frequently, is the idea that you know, the young generation, when they come, and we're talking women and people of color, when they come into interview for a job, are looking at a handful of firms because they have all the opportunities in the world now, particularly with remote work as an option. And they don't see people that look like them,
Yep,
or sound like them, or have similar backgrounds as them in leadership. I They're not seeing that as a place where they're gonna have an opportunity to grow and thrive.
100%.
And whether that's fair or not, and we can argue it back and forth, and I have with people. If your firm's been around for 50 years and there's not at least a decent percentage of your leadership team who are women, people of color, LGBTQ, whatever group we're talking about, then that says something about your firm, and it may be saying something that there are a whole lot of people are don't necessarily agree with and decide to go work somewhere else.
100%. 100%.
We talked a bit about like what firms need to do to attract and retain women, but on the flip side, what advice would you give to women who feel like they are being overlooked for leadership opportunities or just not being heard?
So my advice always starts with know thyself and to thyself be true. If this is a place, an environment that you want to grow in, you respect the people that you work with, you enjoy the work that you're doing, you feel challenged, you feel like you can grow here, then a lot of times if you feel overlooked, it's a matter of having the right level of conversations with people who are in a position of authority and can make decisions. I find that a lot of especially accountants don't speak up,
Mhm.
don't say, like, no one can read our minds. We don't know that you're not happy or unfulfilled or want that higher position or whatever unless you tell someone. And to have the courage to express your wants, your vision, your desires for yourself explicitly, expressly asking for what you want. Um, I think it should start there first and foremost. Now, if you are unhappy with your current situation, and I'll go back and I'll say almost every problem can be solved in communication.
Mm,
Now, it's
true.
not necessarily true that every partner, owner, leader of an organization is going to one have a viable solution for you to meet your needs, or is as effective in their listening as you might be in your communicating, which listening is a form of communication.
Mhm.
Um, and it might not be the right place for you. I don't know if anyone's ever seen a nautilus shell, which is kind of a split in half shell, and it has this beautiful spiral that each chamber is closed off, but it gets bigger as you get out on the outer edges of the shell. It's very normal and natural for us to outgrow the environment that we're in. And I feel universally, spiritually, that when we outgrade the place that we're in, it starts to get very, very uncomfortable to sort of take the feathers out of the nest, if you will. because it's time to move on to a bigger chamber, a place where you grow. And that could be your case. Obviously, start with communicating, start with making your requests known where you are, and see if those opportunities can exist right where you are. But if you know that you've outgrown your current place, then I think it's important to our soul to take appropriate steps. And I say appropriate because I take big risks in life. I'm kind of an unusual person. I don't recommend that most people do half of what I've done because the risks are way too big to take, and somewhat reckless in some cases, I could say. But there's an amount of measured risk, and I'll say even a leap of faith that some people need to take. And there's always a leap, because no matter how much information you get about where you might go next and what might be your next best step, there's almost always a gap where you just can't see how it's all going to work out. And
Mhm.
that's the part which you have to leap over that gap into a future that inspires you. But what hurts me is to see people settle, to settle for, well, it's okay. I'm not fulfilled, I'm not challenged, I'm not respected, I'm not this, but it's okay. And I just can't see myself doing anything else. And often people who have really serious life experiences, I call it a cosmic 2x4.
Hmm.
Um, they that gets shaken. Certainly COVID did that for a lot of people, where they go, whoa, 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 wait a minute. The everyday, ordinary, day-to-day grind, there's more to life than this. And I guess the question is, how, when's the right time to live fully, to express all that untapped potential? It's just a game that we get to play. And so as long as we feel like we can grow and can be a contribution in some way, no matter how small or big, and maybe your contribution is to your family, maybe your contribution is to your team or your clients. I just think that we need something that to live, that gives us some meaning, some purpose. We don't have to cure blindness, but we certainly can feel fulfilled in the work that we do. So I would just say, start to discover what, and create and imagine what a future is that's inspiring to you, that excites you, and look to see if you can create that where you are. And if not, begin to look to see where that future could live for you. And surround yourself with people, be in conversations like this and in communities that are empowering you to have the courage to step fully into the life that you really want. Stop living that default life and start creating and inventing a life, that you want for your life, for yourself.
I love that. And you made a point earlier that I did want to add one thing too, in that, you talk about that sometimes it's hard to stand up for yourself or to vocalize what it is you want, because sometimes it's just hard to figure out exactly what you want, and then how do you communicate that? And I do have to say, and I'm not going to give a firm name because I am not 100% sure of the firm that did this, but there are firms that have built into their review process, which I believe it was 3 times a year that they sit down with people, because once a year, 12 months is a long time to go without a conversation about how you're doing and what you want. And they start every single one of those conversations out with, this is what you told me last time that you see as your trajectory and what you would like your future career to be. Is this still true? And that way, it's not necessarily incumbent on the person being reviewed to say it over and over again. It is their mentor, their supervisor, whoever it is that's leading that conversation, bringing it up and saying, all right, this is the direction we're heading. Are we still want to get there, or do we need to turn on a blinker and go to the right or to the left or figure something out? Because I do think so many times, we may have this vision of what our future looks like, and then life happens. And
Yes.
like you say, those cosmic two by fours. It was a hit across the head by one of those cosmic two by fours that made me start my business. So I get that, but I also love the fact that the firm themselves understand that that is a difficult conversation for a lot of people to have, so they're the ones initiating that each time.
That's really smart. I think that it's very uncommon in the accounting space to have conversations about vision, personal vision. Um, before we, in our, just our core team, everybody completes a personal vision for themselves. And to your point, there's a great book by Jim Collins called Good to Great, and he
Mhm.
talks about getting the right people on the bus, wrong people off the bus, get
Somewhere
every,
up there on that shelf.
and then getting everybody in the right seat. And I think, to the question that you asked previously about what firm owners can do, I think, being flexible, not just to what you bring, but, there are people who are coming in as accountants, but want to be operators or want to be on, the growth and biz dev side, or may want to sit on a different seat and add a different level of value. We do personality profiles, we do personal visions of everybody to get more, to help them become more aware of what lights their fire and where they feel like they add the most value. We call it your genius. Where's your genius? And we had, we've had people who came in one place and said, I really want to do this. And so off they went. I want to become a CPA. We had somebody who came in to help with operations, and she's like, I want to become a CPA. Great. We're going to move you to the finance team and help you get your experience hours and whatever. So cultivating and nurturing and growing your team and helping them get their needs met. I think the old school culture was, you work for us, you're here to serve us, and you, in exchange, you're getting a paycheck. I don't think that those rules apply anymore. Now the question is, what are you getting for yourself out of being here? Because if, other than a paycheck, because if you're only getting, and the only value to you is a paycheck, then you're not going to stay. You're just not going to stay. And you're 100% right. It is the responsibility of the firm to discover and uncover and assist that person in really trying to articulate what it is that they're really, what matters to them, what's important, and what value they can extract out of the experience, no matter how long or short that they're there.
And I think to not assume that everybody wants the same thing. I mean, there are people that are so happy just doing client work, putting their heads down, taking care of those tax returns that a whole lot of people just don't ever want to see again. And that's okay. That's just
Absolutely.
great. If that's how you want to spend your life and if that brings you that joy you're talking about, then let's do that. But you can't, like you say, you can't assume. And so find out what it is that people want. And then let's figure out how to get the greatest and best use out of everybody on the team.
Beautiful.
Well, I always enjoy closing with just some fun questions because honestly, they entertain me. So, but I would love to know when you were 5 years old or a young child, what did you want to be when you grew up?
So I used to say an archaeologist, but that's because I didn't really know what that term meant. So if you ask my mom, she's like, archaeologist. That's not really what I meant. I meant Peace Corps, but I thought that was the term or the title of somebody in the Peace Corps. I really had a vision for, and it was domestic Peace Corps, actually. I used to have a recurring dream when I was a little kid, going into homes and helping the families be successful. Even as a young child, it was a strange thing. And I had that dream for years and years. And so when I heard about the work of the Peace Corps, I'm like, oh, I want to do that when I grow up. So that was my dream. Mistitled, of course, but that was my dream.
Oh, I was going to say, I thought you were going to say you wanted to be Indiana Jones or something.
No, no, I just didn't have the words right.
Did you do a stint with the Peace Corps?
I didn't, no, but I have kind of, I call myself a social innovator. So in a way, I've kind of blended my social impact in with my my businesses and creating our enterprise to become ultimately a B Corp. So we're a for benefit corporation now, a public benefit corporation, and looking to go through the process of becoming a B Corp, which is basically a business that exists for all stakeholders. So that's my version of Peace Corps in this lifetime as an adult.
I like it. Well, if you were given a chance to travel anywhere and you don't have to worry about scheduling or timing or what it's going to cost or any of those kind of things, where would you go and why?
It's a hard question to answer because my husband and I have been to about 25 to 30 countries. We've traveled a lot and we've seen some incredible things. I would say the true answer is the ability to live in various continents and hub and spoke in those areas for about a 2-year stint, so that I have the experience of going everywhere, but being there, not coming from here, going there, coming back, but just, I had this vision that I would get married and my husband and I would go on a 2-year honeymoon around the world and live around the world. So that vision still lives on, and that's probably what I would do.
I like that because I do like actually being in you know, living the real life of wherever it is you are. Because, you go somewhere for a week and you see all kinds of wonderful things, and frequently you meet great people, but, you don't really get the experience of living there. So I like that. That's the first time I've gotten that answer. So kudos on that. And then finally, if you had one superpower, what would it be?
Oh, I have a desire to be someone that is unaffected by life circumstances.
Okay.
So my superpower would be people could be any way, show up anyway, and I still just have love for them. Now, I do my best to show up that way, but I'll tell you what, there are lots of people on the planet and lots of instances and circumstances that I'm in where I can't bring love. So I would have the like Mother Teresa or Gandhi superpower, like, let me love everybody, no matter how they show up on the planet. That, I call it the love superpower.
I like that. That is also kind of a new one, but I think that's good to be able to, um, I don't know, to have conversations with people that you are diametrically opposed to, but yet make it a productive conversation. I mean, we're in politically charged times right now. This is being recorded during the Democratic National Convention. So, yeah, I think that would probably be a good superpower for all of us to have to some extent right now.
Definitely.
Well, thank you so much for being here. This has been just so much fun conversation, and I look forward to continuing to have conversations with you and wish you all the best.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I love what you're doing for women in our industry and women in general. I just really appreciate the opportunity to connect with you. So, yes, looking very much forward to it.
Thank you for listening to Move Like This, brought to you by the Accounting Move Project and sponsored by Moss Adams and Sapro. If you'd like to learn more, visit our website at accountingmoveproject.com. Don't forget to subscribe and share with your friends and colleagues too. I'm your host, Bonnie Buell Russick, and until next time, keep moving forward.